as a professor, we are used to stand and talk to our students, so excuse me. It's a great honor to be here. This is my first time to India. It's a great country. We grew up with a big passion to this country because it's always stand with oppressed people, especially the Palestinian people. And we appreciate its principled position. And we continue to depend on countries like India to stand with us as we are facing now, as Palestinians, an existential war that really threatening the very essence of the Palestinian question. My talk is about the United Nations and the question of Palestine. So I wrote a paper about 16 pages, and I want to summarize it for this purpose, and the summary came out 10 pages. So if I want to read the 10 pages, I will keep you here for longer than what you can bear with me. So if we ask the Palestinians, how do you distribute blame? Who is responsible for this century's most tragic catastrophe on an innocent people? And I think the blame will go this way. First, it is on the United Kingdom. Number one, I don't think there will be any dissension that we all agree, as Palestinians and Arabs in general, that it is the UK the main responsible for the Palestinian tragedy. The second, maybe, there are a lot of Palestinians put the blame on Arab regime, the Arab leaders, at the time and maybe after that, for decisions they took and decisions they didn't take also. And third, it's on the United Nations. The United Nations has been with this issue from the very beginning, from the day they sent the Special Commission to Palestine and recommending the partition of this country, giving about 55% of Palestine to the 1/3 mostly recent immigrants came from Europe, and the 2/3 of the indigenous people were only granted 42% of their country. The Palestinians could not accept that. They couldn't comprehend this kind of solution. And they put the blame on the United Nations because at that time it was in the hands of the big powers. And unfortunately, the two superpowers, in fact, stood together in accepting the partition plan. Yes, it's the UK. It is UK who brought the issue, brought the tragedy. It's the Balfour Declaration of 1917 and the mandate in Palestine which allowed hundreds of thousands of immigrants to come to Palestine. Discrimination against Jews was never been an Arab issue. It is a European issue. It's Europe who discriminated against the Jews. It's Europe who segregated the Jews from the local people. It's Europe who committed the Holocaust. It's not the Arabs and not the Palestinians. Jews and Arabs, all during history, they lived nicely and together. And when the war of acquisition in Spain kicked out Muslims and Jews, they came to the Muslim countries. They came to Morocco, to Algeria, to Tunisia, and to Turkey, because they lived together in harmony all their history, except after the birth of Zionism. So the question of Palestine and the United Nations, it's the oldest item on the agenda of the United Nations. There are no issue that had received more resolutions, both at the Security Council and the General Assembly, as much as the question of Palestine. There are no other agenda that received vetoes as much as the question of Palestine. The first observer mission was created in relation to the question of Palestine. UNSO, it's called UNSO. It was established 29 May 1948, United Nations Truce Organization, and is still functioning until today. The first UN envoy to try to broker peace was assassinated in the steps in Jerusalem. Count Bernadotte, who was assassinated by the Stern Gang, which was classified as a terrorist group, yet the Prime Minister, later on, the leader of that Stern Gang became the Prime Minister of Israel. And the first time the Security Council used the term terrorist, it was in relation to the assassination of Count Bernadotte of Sweden. The first resolution that the UN dealt with the question of Palestine is the Partition Resolution 181 on 29 November 1947. It talked about two states. But one state was established, and the other state never been established. And there was disposition of the majority of the Palestinian people. I wish that all of you can read Ilan Pape's book about the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. 800,000 of Palestinians were expelled from their homes. To deal with that, UN also passed another resolution, 194, which calls for the return of those refugees. Palestinians thought they will go out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, and they will go back because the UN also is supporting their return. It's called the Right of Return Resolution. In fact, when they feel that this is taking longer than few months or few, and many of them start to infiltrate the border and go back to their homes, and they were denied any identity. A famous person who went, and his family went back, is like Mahmoud, the great poet Mahmoud Darwish. They went back to find their village, Birwa, completely erased to the ground, and they lived as refugees in their own country in another village. Another resolution was adopted in that period, Resolution 302, to establish UNRWA. In fact, Arab delegates at the United Nations were not in support of that, because they said there is a resolution, they should go back. Why we have to create an agency to give them milk and oil and food? That means you are planning to keep them as refugees forever. It was the US initiative who created UNRWA, which now trying to dismantle UNRWA as we speak right now. This is the first stage of dealing with the question of Palestine at the United Nations. And then there were years of absence. The UN was silent from 1951 all the way to 1974. However, the Palestinians were not silent. They tried to come back to the stage. They started resisting. As of 1954, there was a movement in Gaza especially called Fidaiyin. And the Fidaiyin started to infiltrate the border and attack some areas on the rim of Gaza. That's why Israel was happy to see England and France attacking Egypt, the Suez Canal, and they joined them immediately. In fact, when Resolution 997 of the GA, because the GA, by the way, handled the Suez Canal, not the Security Council. Security Council had 2 permanent members who can veto any resolution, so they went under the resolution Uniting for Peace resolution. They went to the GA. It was empowered to deal with the Suez crisis, and the Palestinians were active at that time, and the GA dealt with that conflict immediately. They created the first full peacekeeping operation, UNIF, it's called United Nations Emergency Force. And England and France withdrew within a week, but Israel dragged its feet for over 4 months because they want to check things in Gaza. Palestinians came back again, and they formed their own organization. By 1965, although PLO was established in 1964, but Palestinians did not believe in it because it was born at the hands of the Arab regime within the Arab League, so they were not very much enthusiastic. The Palestine National Liberation Movement, which is called Fatah, was established in 1965, and there was debate how to bring the conflict back. We can't keep in absentia. And they started also doing some attacks on the border. On 30th of November, 1966, Israel attacked Jordan, the village of Samu, killing 29, destroying 150 homes, and to punish Jordan for allowing these groups to enter. And on April 7, 1967, as the Palestinians were attacking also from the Syrian Golan Heights and from Lebanon, also Israel attacked Syria and downed 7 MiG planes, threatening Syria of an all-out war. At that moment, Nasser said, I will stand with Syria, which led to the 1967 war. 1967 war, there was a resolution, you all know it, 242. And 242 completely ignored the issue of Palestine. It talks about just solution of the Palestinian, of refugees. They didn't talk even Palestinians. So the Palestinians, again, they were disappointed with the United Nations one more time. And again, after 1967, after the discrediting, the Arab army were discredited, thousands of young Palestinians and Arabs joined the guerrilla movement, which it was located basically in Jordan, Syria and Lebanon. And the first confrontation that happened between Israel and Palestinians at a large scale was on 21st March 1968, which was called Karama Battle, which the Palestinians were able to stand and fight to the end and cause some really heavy damage on the other side, after which thousands and thousands of young Palestinians and Arabs joined the guerrilla movement. Between 1968 and 1970, it was an all-out attrition war on all fronts: Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. In fact, Israel was using its power, air power, to punish every country. For example, in 1968, they went to Beirut airport and destroyed about 18 civilian aircrafts sitting in the airport. Security Council resolution immediately passed 262 condemning this attack. But the question of Palestine, in fact, came back in full force to the UN after the 1973 war. There was a moment of history that maybe will never be repeated. Real Arab solidarity. All countries stood together. The Arab group in the United Nations was acting like one. They brought the issue back to the fore. They invited Yasser Arafat to speak. PLO was granted a status as an observer organization for the first time. Resolution 3236 was passed in 1974, which talks about the Palestinian rights, including self-determination, independence, statehood, and with no external interference, including the leadership of the Palestinians, which was spilled out of the PLO as the sole legitimate representative people. In 1975, the Arab group brought another important issue to the GA. It was Resolution 3379, which equates Zionism of racism. That was like a major challenge, not only to Israel, but to the ideology that brought this country into the Middle East.
I want to point out that you're running a little out of time.
Okay.
So,
So I already spoke for 15 minutes?
Another 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So between 1974 until now, there are 3 stages. The first stage, from 74 to 82, that was the proactive resolutions, where there was a resolution condemning Israel for changes in Jerusalem. Resolution 476 and 478, calling that all changes in Jerusalem are null and void. Resolution to classify settlement as illegal. Many resolutions in that period initiated by the Arabs. The second stage, from 1982 to almost 2004, it was the reaction period, we call it. Security Council passed resolution in reaction to something. The Arabs became now, after Camp David 1979, and the war on Iraq and Iran, and later the invasion of Kuwait, the Arab group was completely in disarray. So during this period, Security Council passed resolution only in reaction, like to the massacre of Jenin, or to the assassination of a leader in Tunisia, attacking PLO office in Tunisia also, expelling 400 Palestinians out to Lebanon. So there was a resolution. And even there were 2 resolutions initiated by the U.S. Resolution 1397, calling about the vision of a 2-state solution, and Resolution 1515 in 2003 about the 2-state solution. The last stage from that 2003-4 until now, it was the marginalization of the question of Palestine. The war on Gaza, for example, in 2014, not one single statement came out. The war in 2008-2009, there was a resolution 1860, but it took a long time to negotiate it. The question of Palestine has been marginalized. Obama administration used the veto in 2011, and the Trump administration already used the veto twice. The Palestinians during this period ran away to other UN organizations. UNESCO, it was recognized in Palestine in 2011. To ICJ 2004, they passed that the wall is illegal. To the GA, to recognize the state of Palestine as an observer state. And I want to conclude by saying there's so many desperation and anger among the Palestinians about the UN as we speak. I mean, the UN was quiet. I mean, Guterres was unable to appoint Salam Fayyad as special envoy in Libya. He was ordered by Nikki Haley to cross it out. He even didn't stand with a report issued by ESCWA, which is a UN agency in Beirut, about the apartheid system in Israel. Now, on 19 July, Israel passed a new law in the Knesset declaring itself as only Jewish state, that is what apartheid. The UN was quiet, did not say anything. They sometimes express regret only. And that's why the anger of the Palestinian and the frustration cannot ever be taken out from their hearts until they see their rights, they see their independence, freedom and dignity. As Minister of State Akbar said, quoting Gandhi, that people who will stand with their right and don't accept injustice, at the final stage, they will win. Thank you very much.